All right, good morning. We're going to go over the events of the last 24 hours and talk about the county's response. With us this morning is Larry Dahlhoff, Chairman of the Board of Legislators for Lewis County. We have Jerry Kayer, CEO of Lewis County Health System, Bob McKenzie, the county's Emergency Management Director, Timothy Hunt, our Highway Superintendent, Chief Ortlieb from the Lowville Village PD, and Troop D Commander Major Robert Simpson from is New York State Police. First of all, we want to say thank you to all the volunteers. That's the most important thing. Volunteers and public servants. As you guys know, Lewis County is a 100% volunteer local fire department, right? Every single fireman in Lewis County is volunteer, and they really put in a lot of hours over the last day, so we thank them quite a bit. Public safety personnel, our law enforcement and dispatchers have been wonderful. State police, forest rangers, environmental conservation, highway superintendents and staff, everyone has been really fantastic. So over the last 24 hours, starting yesterday afternoon, Lewis County experienced a combination of wind, rain, and rain that turned into some flash flooding. We had several roads that are closed and continue to be closed, and there's significant damage of the public highway assets. At this point, the no unnecessary travel ban has been lifted, okay? But we are really asking people that if you see a barrier and it says road closed, we really ask people to respect that barrier, that we have a lot of roads that are still closed at this point. Tim Hunt, our highway superintendent, is going to go through that, some of our road assets that are closed. So please respect our crews that are working, and if you see a barrier that says roads closed, we ask you to please respect that. Secondly, if you see standing water, do not try to drive through it, do not try to walk through it, do not try to go through it. It is not safe to try to move yourself through standing water. Just be patient or go around. What we are asking people to do, however, is check on your neighbors, right? If you're in a part of the county that is between washouts or between bridges that are out, we're asking you to please check on your neighbor, especially if you know that you have elderly or vulnerable neighbors. Make sure that you go down the road and check on them a little bit. We would appreciate that. We will have environmental conservation officers, forest rangers, and state police trying to get door to door to do welfare checks in areas that are isolated because of the damage. So we will have folks out trying to help with that as well. Obviously, for emergencies, we're asking folks to call 911, but for non-emergencies, there's a lot of folks that are trying to get through just to get basic information about road closures, about debris, about where they can get shelter services. We're asking those folks, non-emergency, to call 315-377-2030. That's 315-377-2030. That's a non-emergency number, and it is staffed by Lewis County personnel, okay? We do have a shelter open at Double Play Community Center. Double Play Community Center has been wonderful partners, and they're assisted by the Red Cross, which came in last night. Double Play Community Center is located at Bartow Road in the town of Lowville. We have 25 bed capacity at this point. We did have 5 people stay in the shelter last night, and we anticipate that we'll have a few more over the next couple nights, because there's still a lot of people that can't get to their homes at this point. Thank you to Dan Meyer, and thank you to the Red Cross for helping us with that. The transfer station on Route 26 in Lowville is open for garbage today, particularly debris. So if you've got storm debris, we'd ask you to, if you're capable, don't put it out on the street. That's not super helpful at this point. If you can get your debris to the transfer station, we'd ask you to bring it there directly. We are getting some reports of fuel spills, fuel oil tanks in particular, in basements and areas that are prone to flooding. We've had some instances of fuel tanks getting turned over and spilling. In that case, if it is an emergency, if there are fumes and there's a risk of ignition, obviously call 911. For a non-emergency, if you just need to get that spill cleaned up, the DEC has a 24/7 hotline, New York State Spills. The number for that is 1-800-457-7362. Again, that's New York Spills, 1-800-457-7362. We still do have about 340 residents without power. We're working closely with National Grid. A lot of the issues with that are National Grid can't restore power in areas where they can't get down the road. So if your road is closed and you're without power, it's gonna be a while before we can fix the roads to get back to you. Lastly, we are aware of the situation at Beaver Camp. We've been in really close contact with the administration at Beaver Camp. There's 110 kids that are currently at Beaver Camp. The road is washed out on number 4 road and Buck Point Road and Atset Trail Road from the backside. So all of the county assets at this time, we're making a priority to try to get number 4 road and Buck Point Road reopened so that we have emergency access in and out of that, out of Beaver Camp for the kids. Everybody is safe, everybody has enough provisions, everybody has enough medicine. We've already had forest rangers hike in there this morning. So it's not an emergency situation, but it is a priority to get that reopened for Beaver Camp. At this time, I'll turn it over to our Highway Superintendent, Tim Hunt. He can give a more detailed list of our highway assets that have experienced some damage.
Thank you. I've been in touch with New York State DOT, and right now we've got all of the state roads back open except for Route 812 in New Bremen. It's down to 1 lane. But the state roads are back open. Fortunately, because of the cooperation and help of all the towns that were not affected, we've been able to work very, very rapidly to get roads back open, but we do have quite a few that are still closed. For the county, number 4 road is closed, the entire length of it. West Road is closed, Pine Grove Road is closed, and the Snell Road is closed. For the towns, the town of New Bremen, most all of their roads are closed, and we're asking people, please don't drive on them. We do not know what the condition underneath those roads are. What we're finding is as we go down a road that we think is okay, we're finding sinkholes, we're finding a lot of failures. So we're asking people, until we can fully assess the roads, please don't drive down them. New Bremen and the town of Watson were the 2 hardest hit towns. The rest of the towns seem to be in pretty good shape, but Watson and New Bremen were assessing the roads very quickly, and most of their roads have been damaged. So that's where we stand from a town and county road situation. And I do want to say thank you to all the towns that have reached out. Most of the towns in Lewis County that were not affected have sent trucks today to start helping. Jefferson County has reached out, and many other highway departments have reached out and started sending assets here, and we've already started reopening roads. So hopefully by this afternoon we'll have a lot different outlook, but please be patient with us. We do have a lot of bridges and a lot of box culverts that are out. Those are going to take some time when we get to those to cross them. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Next we'll have Chief Ortlieb from the village of Lava to give an update on the village.
So Ryan touched on a lot of stuff that's going on in the village. We know unnecessary travel has been lifted in the village as well. Right now we're in pretty decent shape, better than we thought. So the only road that we still have closed, and the only street in the village is Hemlock. And that's closed for next few weeks probably. Ryan touched on the non-emergency number. Our office is not always staffed. We're a small department, we're out and about, we're on the street. So utilize that non-emergency number, or if you have an emergency, obviously call 911. The fire department was out all night. They continue to be out. The siren's still going off as we speak. And our DPW crews took a brief break last night. They're back at it, and that's how we were able to get our streets back open. So Stowe Street just opened back up, so that's 100%, and Ross Road. So other than that, we're in decent shape.
Thank you, Chief. One more time, we just want to say thank you to all of our partners. The response in Lewis County, as always, overwhelming, positive, people just willing to help and step up. And really, the state of New York has been great too. New York State Police, Rangers, NCON, everybody. We've had all the resources we need. So with that, we'll take any questions.
Ryan, it's pretty costly, right? The stuff, roads, bridges, that kind of stuff. Talk about cost, and can you even put a number to it?
No, not yet. Anytime that a storm or act of God in Lewis County exceeds $100,000 of damage, we are eligible for federal FEMA reimbursement. There's no doubt we're going to be over $100,000 worth of damage. So the important thing right now that we're trying to press upon our county employees and our municipal employees is they need to track the time, they need to track the resources that they're using in terms of stone or gravel or bridges, whatever it may be. And we need to take photographs and document everything so that we can get reimbursed by FEMA. So, but it's probably going to be a multi-million-dollar event. I mean, we've got multiple bridges that are out, multiple box culverts. You know, those are not cheap things, and they take a while to fix, as Tim mentioned.
Where's that rank with other storms that you guys have experienced?
I've been here 7 years. Larry's been here a lot longer. But I think in my time, this is the most, the most damage that we've had. I think. Larry, what do you think?
I would agree with that. I think the snowstorms don't create a lot of damage.
Ryan, can you touch on the school a little bit, and what kind of has the school experienced in damage or the turf field or stuff? We've all seen that video.
Yeah, we've been in contact with the school. Bob McKenzie just got off the phone with our contact at the school just moments ago. They have over 100 personnel assisting them with repairs already. So it's not a small deal to have flooding in a school because you've got to replace all the flooring, you've got to do air monitoring. They're not going to let students back into that school if there's any risk of mold, anything like that. So the school has been, they've been hit pretty hard, but their response has been robust. So.
I don't know if you can address this, but a lot of homes are being affected by this, right? Is this an instance where if you don't have flood insurance that you might have some problems? What are you looking at there? What do you tell residents?
I can't speak to that specifically unless it is considered a national federal disaster. Then there typically is not assistance for private property. So, public property, like I said, we've got the $100,000 threshold, which we will hit. But for private property, it has to be a national disaster. I don't know if this would be a national disaster. It's definitely a disaster for Lewis County, but I don't know if it rises to the level of national disaster. If folks have questions about what's covered in their homeowner insurance, they need to reach out to the insurance companies at this point.
You kind of talked about this last night for us, but Lowville had about 9.3 inches of rain is what it ended up being. And it all has to go someplace, and Lowville is a lowville, right? And so it all has to come through here. I mean, that's the nature of what happened, right? I just kind of give the synopsis of wherever it fell, it comes to the lowest point.
Yeah, so Lewis County is, geographically unique. It's one big valley. You've got the Adirondack, foothills of the Adirondacks to the east, and the Tug Hill to the west. And a lot of that water, goes through one catchment area, which is through the Black River. So it's all headed down to the valley. A lot of the damage that we saw was because the tributaries got filled up really, really quickly. So the Black River has, we get flooding on the Black River all the time. It expands. You got the flats there in Lowville and New Bremen. So that, we're used to flooding on the Black River, but when the tributaries get really really filled really quick, that's when we've got the issues with the culverts and the smaller bridges that aren't used to that water level. Tim, anything to add on bridge? Tim?
I'd like to ask Tim a couple of questions if we could.
Before you
Yes,
start,
please. Go
I
ahead.
have a question. I did see a lot of traffic up on Rector Road and on Tuck Hill. What kind of damage is happening up there where the water started?
That would be a good question for Tim. Rector Road had a complete washout, but Tyler Jones there, Martinsburg Highway Superintendent, told us this morning they've got that completely restored, which is incredible. Whitaker Park Road was closed yesterday, but as far as I'm aware, that's open now. But
Any
yeah,
damage to Whetstone Gulch, the park itself, or
I'm not aware of anything.
tourism infrastructure that you're aware of?
While you're there, what about you and I talked about it, but not confirmed, but what about wind damage, Watson or tornadoes or anything like that? What do you know about those?
Yeah, so I believe we have a confirmation of one touchdown in Osceola. Yes. That was deep in the woods as far as we're aware. It didn't really affect anybody. And we've got some significant wind damage in the town of Watson as well. So not sure if it was a tornado touchdown or a microburst. At this point, to us, it really doesn't make that much of a difference, but there was a lot of down trees and some shearing action on the trees. So we obviously had some dangerous winds as well yesterday. Anything else before we go to Tim? Jonathan?
Your work is just beginning with all the damage that you have. How monumental is this task ahead with the bridges and culverts that you talked about?
This is going to change the course of the summer. Obviously, what we had planned is going to be set on the back burner, and we're going to spend the rest of the summer repairing and recovering from this. And I think it'll probably be more than this summer. I think it'll be a multi-year recovery from this, honestly.
You seen anything like this before? I know your answer, but I like to hear you say it. But I mean, have you seen anything like this before?
I've been through a lot of storms and a lot of these issues, but this was a once in a lifetime. You know, we talk about upsizing our infrastructure and making it more resilient, and often there's money out there to make infrastructure. You can't build infrastructure for these type of storms. What we saw yesterday, there was no way you could make bridges or culverts big enough to handle that kind of volume of water in that short period of time.
The funding could be there to help you, but in terms of manpower, overtime, and all that.
Yeah.
But your crews, what kind of hours are they going to be putting in to put Lewis County back together?
You know, that's one of the beautiful thing about the North Country, right? Is these guys we didn't even ask. They came in. I had my summer help here till midnight last night. They just all pitched in, started working, started repairing roads. You had asked about Rector Road. They fixed it last night. They fixed it at 10 o'clock last night. They were up there repairing that road. The town of Martinsburg was. So everybody came in, all the towns came in, and there's going to be a lot of hours involved, but many hands make light work, and we've got a lot of help. So I'm very confident we can get that done.
You mentioned New Bremen. I find it interesting. You're going to have to inspect a lot of those roads.
Yes.
What do you do with that? You walk them? You drive them? What do you have to do?
We do a combination of both. And actually, I've already reached out to an engineer that we have on contract here at the county, and he's on his way here right now, and we're going to go look at all of the structures to make sure they're safe for crossing. And the ones that are not, because we know that we have at least 5 or 6 bridges that are gone, that have washed out. What are our options for temporary structures? We've had loggers reach out, for example. Can we put timber mats over them like they do in a logging situation? I don't know if that's a good idea right now, right? But we're going to try to assess those situations and see how we can at least get roads open as quickly as possible, safely for the public. And so we're going to try to assist the towns with that as well.
I don't know if you can answer this or everyone collectively, but was there any interruption of services? I drove around 9 o'clock last night. The entrance to the hospital was, the rush of the water you heard during the river going down and the waterfall pouring into the parking lot. And with manufacturers on the other end of the town, a lot of the roads cut off right by Kraft or whatever. Has there been any interruption that any of you are aware of for business or services, anything like that, or just delayed yesterday to some degree?
I think just delayed. What we saw yesterday is the storm really started to impact after work hours, 5:30, 6 o'clock. And the biggest problem is it kept cutting off more and more and more roads.
Right.
So we had a lot of people out on the roads that were stranded because they went this way, they couldn't go that way. They turned around and go back this way, and they were trying to find ways around. And that was really about a 4 to 5 hour period yesterday where we had a lot of people out there that were really just stranded. But I think most of the businesses, especially the essential businesses, stayed open and were available for people.
And this morning, what time did things get kind of clear out so people can get to and from work that leave their shift at Kraft or whatever the case?
By
still
5
happening.
o'clock, most of the roads were, a lot of the roads were just closed because of high water.
Right.
That receded fairly quickly last night. So by midnight, 1 o'clock, you could drive most of the roads. The question is, we didn't know what was undermined underneath those roads.
Right.
And we did find quite a bit of that. A lot of sinkholes had opened up. So, but for the most part, the roads were open this morning with the water down.
I have a few questions for Mr. McKenzie from the emergency management perspective. First, can you just talk a little bit about the response last night, specifically here in the village of Lavo? I know you had probably 15 different fire departments show up to help out with Lavo with some homes needed to be evacuated, some streets needed to be closed down, lots of basements to be pumped. Can you just kind of talk a little bit about that process?
Sure. So the calls, when they first started coming in, they were mostly for flooded basements and so on and so forth. And then it became more housing stability. There's some houses that washed out, roads that were washing out. And as the roads washed out and the water was moving, we got increased in the number of flooded basement calls. We ended up calling mutual aid from virtually every department in the county, and some of them just spontaneously showed up. We had assignments for all of them, and The majority of them were taken care of last night. There were a few more remaining this morning, and there's still some yet, as of right now, that are still getting pumped out and taken care of.
So basically, my understanding was you had a command center set up at the Loudville Fire Department with, kind of dispatching taking place from there.
Yep, that's correct. We had a unified command at the Loudville Fire Department, and that had DPW crews, state police, county sheriffs, NCON, everybody was there. And as the calls came in and as the welfare checks came in, concerned relatives, we were able to send out NCON and or forest rangers to go check on those particular areas. And they also assisted us quite a bit with damage assessments as well to figure out what roads were bad and how large the scale was.
And do you have any estimate on like the number of structures here in the village that were actually damaged?
I wouldn't want to speculate on that number because even today I'm sure that there are people going out and looking at their garages and or their homes and they're finding more damage.
How many people had to be evacuated or removed from their homes?
I don't have a specific number on that because of the rate and the volume that the calls were coming in. Every call that went out and every call for assistance was met almost immediately, and it was just taken care of, and the other situations where there was a potential were mitigated.
Do you know how many calls came through the dispatch center?
I'm going to put the number at about 290 calls, CAD calls, and all of those were answered, and as of this morning, the only CAD calls that we have left on there are just for closed roads.
Just to piggyback, do you have any idea of how many people were actually, how many homes were destroyed? You said that there were some that were completely washed out, not just the basement damage, but those that were uninhabitable. Do you have a sense of that?
As far as uninhabitable, we've got approximately 4 that I know of immediately. And all of those people have either gone to relatives or to other locations, and we've got some that were in apartment buildings that are actually up at the Red Cross Center right now.
That's the housing unit down by Tractor Supply that was flooded. There was pictures of it pouring through windows down there.
Yeah, I don't specifically remember which one it was.
How long do
Officer.
How long do you anticipate the shelter at Double Play will be in operation? Like as long as needed, or is there a timeline on that?
So that's going to be operational for a minimum of 24 additional hours just to find out how much additional traffic is going to have to come in there. And as people that are cut off from services such as power and water as well, as they discover they've had enough of trying to stay at home and they want to seek out shelter, we'll keep it open as long as we have to make sure that everybody's needs are met.
Is that just like a show up situation, or do you have to call ahead of time and make arrangements, or what's
Nope,
that?
just show up at the Red Cross or at the center at Double Play, and the Red Cross will assist you, and they'll help you meet your needs.
What about emergency coverage today? We actually have like a few roads that are closed, and you're there to make sure this piece moves over here to cover, and how are you moving things? Do you have to move things around right now to make sure there's coverage, especially in the green area?
Yeah, so we've actually got automatic mutual aid set up from the peripheral fire departments. So if it's a specific area that they're responding in, we've got additional roads and we've got pathways that they can get in there. And if it's absolutely cut off from all services, we have fire departments that have UTVs and various other types of equipment that can get back into these places that are more isolated.
Sorry.
I was just wondering about, I know we've heard a lot about Loudville, New Bremen, the central portion of the county. Any impacts on the southern or northern portions of the county, or not? I mean, everybody got some rain, but not as much.
So it's been minimal impacts to the far northern end and the far southern end. There's been reports of scouring on the roads and a few isolated flooded basements, but nothing significant. Nothing like in the central part of the county in the Loudville area.
You mentioned previously the power outages, and they've gotten much better since last night and yesterday, right?
Indeed it has.
There were some reports, however, of potential water issues, some water contamination. Have you heard anything of that? Has there been, it could have been just rumors of what happened?
Yeah, that's at this point none have been reported to my office or reported to anybody that has made me aware. I am aware that there is a social media post out there requesting to know about water. If your water's cloudy or if you have any question about your water, go ahead and boil it prior to use. That's my best answer for you.
When you go to these places and you have to pump out all this water, where are you pumping it out to? Because obviously you can't pump it out just to the road when everything's all flooded and stuff like that.
So they try to find their best areas to pump them out to. A lot of times it is to the road, and it does go back in the storm drains. Any cellar that has any type of contamination in it, such as fuel oil or anything like that, the fire department will not pump that out. You actually need a contractor to come in and pump out that cellar so that they can appropriately get rid of that wastewater. Okay.
Larry, could I ask you a couple of questions?
Sure.
Appreciate that. Thanks, Bob. What kind of conversations have you had? I know that from yesterday talking with the Commissioner of Homeland Security, she was on the phone with a lot of emergency management folks like Bob, or maybe even county leaders. But what kind of conversations at those levels were you having today to make sure the state knows what Lewis County needs?
Both Ryan and I have been in contact with the governor's office a couple times last night, at least once this morning, offering whatever we needed. They did come to the table with extra state police, DEC officers, NCON, forest rangers who have been providing assistance to us. And we're very grateful for that. They've done a nice job.
Thank you.
Okay, questions for our health system CEO, Mr. Kerr?
Status quo, right? I mean, everything went okay for you?
I actually do have a question on what you said. Jerry, I have a quick question that maybe will help you address the general.
Sure.
With all the new construction, you did some intense land moving, and the water pouring that I referenced, some of it was storm drain overage, like at the entrance and stuff. But then in the back of the parking lots, there was some down boulders, it looked like, and definitely there was a waterfall pouring out of the back. It was very pretty, but not necessarily helpful, I would imagine. And you've just done all this tremendous work for the new surgical pavilion. What kind of impact will that have? That's not the kind of contingency you can ever plan for, I would imagine.
Yeah, the area of the system you're referring to was not part of our construction project. All of the new construction, surgical pavilion, medical surgical, CCU, and all of the earthwork that made that possible, and the drainage systems that were put in place did their job yesterday. What you're referring to was construction from 2 or 3 decades ago, and before coming here earlier this morning, we had a civil engineer out on site, and we're already developing plans for how we're going to modernize that part of the parking system. So, no, that worked out. It was an inconvenience yesterday, but had no impact on operations.
Nobody's car got showered, shall we say?
No, you know, your shoes got wet getting out to the parking lot. From a service perspective, yesterday everything went as scheduled. All our surgeries that were scheduled occurred, and in fact, we had 2 babies delivered. So, you know, when you hear the lullaby over the loud system, it sort of puts everything in perspective. In fact, we have a mom who's working on making a delivery today. So all of our staff are in, all services yesterday and today are fully operational. All of the support services are fully operational. Is it a little more inconvenient? Yes, because we're having to make some adjustments. And some water issues we've dealt with are in the old part of the structure, a few wet ceiling tiles, a couple of heaters that were wet in the nursing home. One resulted in a call to Louisville PD. It was an annoyance, not a significant infrastructure issue.
For your outlying clinics, any issues?
No issues at the outlying clinics. They're all open, and we're serving the Beaver River community. And though we've been put on notice of some potential high water, we've already had someone out to evaluate that. And short of a dam issue, that clinic is functional and working today. Did that answer your question?
Totally.
Okay, great.
Great. No, you're totally fine. I got 2 quick questions for Ryan at the end. No injuries. How amazing is that? How incredible is that? Is that accurate, or?
I think it was not accurate.
Okay. Have there been any injuries?
No, there has not been any injuries, none reported, and actually with the with the volume of volunteer firefighters that were out there working in extremely adverse conditions, there was none reported back that there was any injuries of any firefighters as well. I think it just speaks volumes to the resiliency of the Lewis County community and the caliber of people we have.
That's incredible, though. I mean, you hear of, like, flooding is the most dangerous thing usually in these kind of storms, when you have the remnants of a hurricane go through. And you usually hear of a death or two or injuries.
Yep.
To me, that seems pretty incredible.
It is. It's absolutely incredible. And none were reported. All the needs were met. And currently today, the isolated areas that have been cut off from everything, we've got forest rangers heading out there, and they're going to go door to door knocking on those residences just to verify that all their needs are met and that they're comfortable and that they're going to be safe.
From emergency services standpoint, there wasn't a whole lot of warning. Obviously, I mean, we knew the hurricane came on shore over the weekend and things like that. But as far as the track of where the rain was going to end up after that fact, we really didn't get a whole lot of notice. So, what kind of preparation was put in beforehand in the 12 to 18 hours that we knew that this was a potential?
So for the most part, we do as we do during the wintertime when we're predicted to get a lake effect storm. You monitor, you alert to the best of your ability, but there was no way to plan for an event like this in Lowville. The rains that we saw and the volume of water that we saw come through the village, it could best be described as biblical. I mean, we've never seen anything like this before. There were places that got water that they've never seen. I had an older gentleman walk up to me and say, "I've lived here for 50 years and I've never seen water come across my lawn like this before." It was just absolutely incredible. As far as planning goes, there would be absolutely no way to plan for it. But as far as day-to-day planning and as far as routine storm planning, you just alert and you monitor, and if you see a specific threat, you follow that specific threat.
Hey, Ryan, last question. What did we learn from all this?
I'll answer that in a few days, I guess. Yeah, I think it's obvious to us that have been in this emergency response. Not just today, but the last several years. I mean, these storms are becoming more and more prevalent. I mean, like Tim Hunt said, there's a reason why the state is trying to get us to make the spans of our bridges wider and the spans of our culverts wider, and it's expensive. But we recognize that these huge rain events are becoming more and more common, and so we do need to put more investment into those that infrastructure and make sure that we're prepared in the future. But like Bob said, there's not a lot you can do in the short run. There's a lot you can do in the long run for it, I think.
Is that the silver lining? That if you have a catastrophe, you have to replace these bridges, you have to replace and make them bigger. To have something like this roll through, now it opens up the federal pockets to perhaps help you.
We prefer to replace our infrastructure in a structured, planned, year by year, priority by priority basis, and not all at once because of a big storm. But it is a good thing, and we are very lucky that we have incredible support from New York State and the federal government, that when we do have these events, we can get assistance, because there's no way the taxpayers of Lewis County on their own in 1 year would be able to afford all of the culverts and bridge replacements that we're going to have to do over the next 12 months. So in that sense, it's good, but it's by no means preferable. I think Jerry had one more thing to add.
When I was answering your question, what it really reflects to me is yesterday for the health system, it was inconvenience. And the reason it's only an inconvenience is because of the work of Tim and his highway department, and the work of emergency management and the work of the fire department. Our employees were able to leave the health system and get home. They were able to come into work this morning, and they were already out working on the culvert as people were coming into work. So it's important to recognize that. And also early this morning, I want to recognize Carthage Area Hospital and Samaritan Medical Center, who both have reached out and offered assistance. And it reminded me of the COVID period, where from a health system perspective, we were all working together. And, you know, to answer your question around, you know, the bridges and the culverts, it is clear in the North Country when something happens, we come together. And rivalries are put aside and people work together and step up. So I'm grateful to you, Tim, to you, Bob, and police and to fire, because we could do our jobs yesterday because all of you did your jobs.
Okay, I think that's it for us. We'll be available for comment later, obviously, and if anybody needs any more information, we're happy to provide it.
This was very helpful to have everyone together, so we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Great.